I am Eric Anderson from awardswatch.com, and I have with me today Emmy, Grammy, and Tony winner Billy Porter. Hello, Billy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. I hope you are too. How are you doing?
I'm doing as good as can be expected in the state that the world is in, but I'm trying to be positive and last night was very inspiring to me. So, I'm going to go with that.
There you go. And I was going to say before we even really start, I wanted to say how great last night was, and what did you think about it? How did you feel?
um, I felt like this pandemic required innovation that allowed for the convention, at least in my experience, to resonate differently. You know, you're hearing the words very acutely because there is no audience, there is no cheering, there is no chanting, there is no bubble. It's literally just the words. And I think that's very special. I felt like I was engaged in a more grounded way than I have been in the past. It's easy to get caught up in the pomp and circumstance of it all. And to not have that really, I thought focused it in a very interesting way.
I love that perspective of it because I think sometimes for a performer, this type of version of having to do that without that feedback must be difficult. So I love that this was such an enthusiastically positive experience.
Yeah, it was positive watching it. It was positive to receive it. I have my own, relationship to my performance vis-a-vis this. But I
Yes.
think that we, as performers, did the best that we could. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift to. I really want to ask you just quickly about your Emmy win last year,
hmm
and the obviously the historical context of it. What changed for you the most personally and professionally from it?
well, speaking in terms of awards, I just have to preface this by saying that for me, it's about the work first. For me, it's about the art first. Awards are fabulous. I love winning them. And they are different for a person like me, being Black, queer, and out. It means something different for me than it does for my white counterparts. My white counterparts are going to be respected anyway. They're going to work anyway, simply because of their whiteness. What this award has done for me is crack open doors and spaces into rooms and seated at tables and involved in projects and situations that I otherwise would not have been considered for, privy to. It actually has changed my life in a very quantitative and significant way. And I'm grateful for that.
That's perfect. Yeah, even though obviously I work in the realm of awards, the conversation of turns to that more than it does about opportunity sometimes. And I think sometimes the awards are the door that gets to opportunity, but certainly is a
Yes.
part of the conversation that has to be uh, brought to that table as well.
Yeah, yeah. For some of us, the awards actually do mean that we can now come to the table.
I want to ask too, between Pose and the Oscars and the Emmys and the Met Gala, you're really at the forefront of challenging the concepts of masculinity and femininity and always
Mhm.
giving us a moment to just gag on. What were your earliest memories of fashion and what you wanted your part in that to be?
Well, I grew up in a Black family who went to church. The Black church is a fashion show. It just is. For those of you who don't know, we say it all the time, but the Black church is a fashion show. Is the highest of fashion. Period. The end. It always has been. It always will be. My grandmother was a seamstress. She would get the Vogue patterns and make clothes. I would get my Easter suits. I would get my Christmas suit every year, 2 suits a year. I've always been into fashion. And you know, my grandmother said, dress for the job you want, not the one you have. That has stuck with me. And also understanding being first generation post-civil rights movement. It was beat into me that the first impression is what you look like. So we dressed up for everything because we wanted our first impression to be that. Yeah. So coming into the business, fashion has always been a part of it. For me, I've always loved fashion. I have really been acutely aware that women have a greater opportunity to use fashion as another revenue stream. And initially, I was going for that. Simultaneously, what emerged in a very organic way was this idea of what it means to, as a man in show business, to use fashion as a piece of activism. You know, use the art of fashion as activism. You know, my art is my activism. And so I approach it from that. You know, masculinity, my masculinity has been in question from the moment I could breathe. You know, I spent the first 20 years of my career trying to be masculine enough by society standards to simply eat, to get a job so I could eat. When I was trying to do that, I was bankrupt and unemployed. The minute I took myself out of that race, the minute that I found a space where I could just stand in my authenticity, stand in my truth, stand inside of the very thing that everybody told me was my liability. And it was my liability for decades until it wasn't. And now it's not.
There you go. I think that's going to be incredibly inspirational for people to hear, because I think it's the thing that you want to tell yourself sometimes and you don't, and sometimes you need to hear it outside.
Well, I always say it's easy to be who you are when what you are is what's popular. There's a rhetoric that goes around in our world and in our space, especially in the entertainment community, about authenticity, about being who you are. And very often it's coming from people who fit in.
Yeah.
Very often, not always, but very often it's coming from people who fit in. And I was gravitating to the people who were making it, the people who were crossing over, who didn't fit in. That was what I gravitated to. And that was what gave me the courage and the space to lean into myself.
That's wonderful. What did Billy Porter at 20 years old think think what Billy Porter at 40 or 50 was going to be?
I couldn't think that far ahead. You know, we were in the middle of the AIDS crisis. I was just trying to stay alive. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was thinking, am I going to live to see tomorrow? So I don't know. You know, I was naive. I wanted to be a star. I thought, you know, having visibility, that part of it, I understood at that age. You know, having visibility would create a space for change. I did know that. But the intention changed. My intention changed from being one of naivete, I think, egoic, you know, simply wanting to be a star. That was all I knew or understood at that point. And my focus shifted to intention, to service. You know, I was watching Oprah Winfrey and she had Maya Angelou on, and Iyanla Vanzant, and they were talking about service. What does service look like? Because when you choose service, the rest of it will work itself out. My service is what you see in front of you right now. My service is leaning into my truth, which is my queerness. In a world and in a space where everybody tells you that you're wrong. Everybody tells you you're an abomination.
Yeah. That's a great opportunity to jump into the second season of Pose, which opens incredibly with this visual representation of Black queer lovemaking. And I don't think I've seen that since maybe Noah's Ark.
Yeah,
on
Noah's Ark.
television.
And thank you for knowing that Noah's Ark actually existed, because I had to keep telling people that I'm not the first. This is not the first. It's the first that white people are seeing, but it's not the first.
What was it absolutely it still feels like a watershed moment happening now.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that experience like, and working with Dylan in that moment?
Dylan is how you say his name.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. Because it looks like Dylan. So, you know, it was out of body for me, you know, simply because as a Black queer man, any queer person for a very long time in the mainstream, they cut our dicks off. They cut our sexuality out of every conversation. At 47 years old, when we shot the first season, and in episode 8, I had a date and I had to kiss a person. I had to kiss someone romantically. It was the first time in my 30+ career that I have been the object of anyone's affection in anything. Just think about that, right? I'm almost 50 when that happens. You know, 48. Cut to the next season. I'm 49 years old and y'all want me to get naked? I was like, I signed the nudity clause laughing. I was like, nobody wants to see this shriveled up, dried up.
Okay, but we know that's not true, though. We know that is not true.
Well, listen, I have body dysmorphia, and the only thing I was trying to do was not have that during the scene. Was love myself enough where I could be naked and be in the scene. We all have our trauma. We all have our journey. It was very empowering to be given the opportunity to vibrate in that space. It was very empowering.
Yeah, it was. I can only imagine how much it would be to somebody young and Black and queer and watching it and feeling just a moment of hope of anything.
Yeah.
How much of you is in Pray Tell? Do you draw
all of me
on personal, all of it? Yeah.
All of me. Yeah. I mean, that as an actor, that's what it needs to be. It's all or nothing. Go big or go home. You know, interestingly enough, Pray Tell did not exist before I walked into the room. Pray Tell was created because I walked into the room. Um, you know, I lived it. I'm 50 years old. I lived through the AIDS crisis. I lived through it. I know what it is. I have firsthand knowledge of it. You know, so it is remarkable to me to have lived long enough to see this day, to see this transition in the way we tell stories, in the people we tell stories about. You know, when I came out in the 80s, this story was an impossibility. Pose was an impossibility. Pray Tell was an impossibility. Um, it's a gift and it's a blessing to be a part of making this kind of history.
What I find it really interesting is that you because of the era of the second season in like the late 80s and early 90s, you would have been that age that the young cast is now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you become, in that sense, a de facto kind of historian for them, since so much of our history has to be written and spoken by us?
Yeah, I mean, just by the nature of me being present in my age, you know, yeah, in certain ways, yes. But for me, I just try to be a present and be an example. And I allow for whatever energy comes my way to be present for that and to be available for that. Um, but yes, I am a part of the history.
Yeah. You chose Love's in Need of Love Today as your Emmy submission. Why did you select that episode aside from being an absolutely incredible episode?
Well, because that's where they, you know, my whole journey in my career um, was to change the conversation surrounding the magical gay fairy clown. You know, that's an archetype that um, we as queer people have been forced into since the beginning of time. I wanted to be more than that. Simultaneously, who doesn't love being fabulous? You know, unfortunately, sometimes fabulous is synonymous with clown and there's no expansion. What I love about Pray Tell, and in particular, um, this episode, but this is the entire role, it's the entire show, is that we are all truly three-dimensional people. And you watch us choosing life and choosing love and celebrating life and celebrating love in the midst of the most dire of circumstances, the hardest kind of heartbreak. That's what the show is. And that's why I chose that particular episode, because it is on full display from my character within that hour. All the things I do, you get to see.
It is. It is everything. It's a ghost of Pray Tell past, and you get to sing, and it is everything.
Thank you.
I talked to Stephen a few weeks ago about season 3. Had kind of just started gestating, and then was cut due to production shutdowns, obviously. Where is Pray Tell going in the next chapter of Pose?
I don't know. I don't know why y'all ask me like I have that information. I get the script just like the rest of the cast, and I learn what Pray Tell is doing in the moment. They don't talk to me. I'm not on the writing staff. I'm not on the creative staff. They tell me what I'm doing, and I show up and I do what they ask. And it's always great.
Okay, I'll call Steven again and see what's up.
Yeah, you got to call them because I don't know.
You mentioned magical fairy earlier, and I just saw that the production of the Cinderella feature with you as the fairy godmother might be kicking up soon.
Yeah,
Are you excited for that?
yeah. I already shot my part in February
Oh,
before quarantine. So I'm actually done. But I am so excited for the world to see this um, reimagining of this fairy tale from a perspective that I say is very um, loving of women and very modern inside of what it's saying about our culture and what it's saying about women.
absolutely. I'm really excited for it, and I can't wait to see you and everybody else in it. It's a really great cast.
Thank you.
Um, I mentioned at the top that you have an Emmy, a Grammy, and a Tony. What do we need to do to get you the Oscar to finish that EGOT?
Relax. Everybody just needs to relax. I'm working. We're all working. Whatever it is will come. Whenever it comes, it comes. I don't know what else to say. You know, I, yeah, it's lovely. It's great. But like, I'm not going to stress myself out about trying to win an Oscar. I'll stress myself out about trying to get good work that may lead to an Oscar, but I'm focused on the work.
That's perfect. Um, do you think you'll return to the theater once things
Of
get
course.
some type of
Of
normalization?
course. Yes, of course. I'll
Good.
be back in the theater. You know, I won't be doing 3 years of a run of anything anymore. You know, I'm gonna do that movie star, television star, 26 weeks and you're out situation. But I will be back to the theater um, as a writer, as a director, and an actor.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I know you had the song from an Unmade Bed with Kayla Settle and John Lithgow. Do you have anything else kind of brewing as possibilities
For
in
theater,
this age? Yeah.
yeah, I wrote a musical, a gospel musical that I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to work on. In this time, I um, have been hired to sort of reimagine Cy Coleman's The Life for the Encore series in New York.
Okay.
I have a play called The Purists that I'm directing. We're working on trying to get it to Broadway. You know, I'm always working on something.
Always have something in. Billy, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute thrill to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.